Accurate, the true story of Joan of Arc, the teenage warrior who led France to victory. Joan of Arc remains one of history's most extraordinary figures. A peasant girl who, at just 17 years old, changed the course of French history during the 100 Years' War, before meeting a tragic end at the stake at age 19. Her story blends divine inspiration, military genius, political intrigue, and ultimate martyrdom in a way that continues to captivate people 6 centuries later. Resilient, humble beginnings and divine visions. Born around 1412 in the small village of Domremy in northeastern France, Joan was the daughter of Jacques d'Arc, a peasant farmer, and Isabelle Romée. Her childhood was marked by the ongoing conflict between France and England, known as the 100 Years' War, which had been raging since 1337 over disputes about the French throne. At age 13, Joan began experiencing visions that would change her life and the fate of France. She reported seeing Saint Michael the Archangel, Saint Margaret of Antioch, and Saint Catherine of Alexandria, who told her she had a divine mission to save France from English domination and ensure Charles VII was crowned as rightful king. These visions continued throughout her teenage years, becoming more urgent as she reached 16. Joan took a vow of chastity, believing her purity was essential to her mission. Rassi, the impossible journey to Chinon. In May 1428, the Voices instructed Joan to travel to Vaucouleurs and seek an audience with Robert de Baudricourt, the local garrison commander loyal to Charles VII. Initially dismissed as a deluded peasant girl, Joan persisted and returned in January 1429. This time, her quiet conviction won over Baudricourt and 2 of his soldiers, Jean de Metz and Bertrand de Poulengy, who escorted her through enemy territory to Chinon, where Charles was staying. The 11-day journey was perilous. Joan cropped her hair and dressed in men's clothes for safety, as they traveled through regions controlled by the English and their Burgundian allies. When she arrived at Chinon in February 1429, Charles initially hid among his courtiers to test her, but Joan immediately recognized him. According to legend, she privately revealed information to Charles that only a messenger from God could know, though the details remain unknown. The miracle at Orléans. Before trusting Joan with military command, Charles had her examined by theologians at Poitiers for 3 weeks. They found no evil in her and suggested that if she could lift the siege of Orléans, under English control since October 1428, it would prove her divine mission. In April 1429, Joan was given armor, a banner bearing the name of Jesus, and a sword miraculously discovered in the church of Sainte Catherine de Fierbois as she predicted. She led French troops to Orléans, arriving on April 29th. Though initially told to wait for reinforcements, Joan sensed divine inspiration on May 4th and led an attack that captured an English fort. Over the next few days, she continued leading assaults despite being wounded by an arrow. And by May 8th, the English abandoned the siege. This stunning victory, achieved in just 4 days after months of stalemate, made Joan famous across France and earned her the nickname, the Maid of Orléans. It proved the turning point in the war, shattering the myth of English invincibility, for the road to Reims and coronation. After Orléans, Joan won another decisive victory at Patay on June 18, 1429, where the French routed the English army. She then convinced the hesitant Charles to march to Reims for his coronation, the traditional site where French kings were crowned. The journey through enemy territory was risky, but Joan's leadership secured the surrender of towns along the way without bloodshed. On July 17, 1429, Charles VII was crowned in Reims Cathedral with Joan standing nearby holding her banner. This ceremony legitimized Charles's claim to the throne and was a political masterstroke made possible by Joan's military successes, Garza capture, trial, and martyrdom. Following the coronation, Joan's influence began to wane as Charles preferred diplomacy over further military campaigns. Her failed September 1429 attack on Paris and unsuccessful siege of La Charité in November reduced court support. On May 23, 1430, while defending Compiègne against Burgundian forces allied with the English, Joan was pulled from her horse and captured. The Burgundians sold her to the English, who were determined to discredit both Joan and Charles VII by proving her a heretic. Her trial began in Rouen in January 1431, presided over by Bishop Pierre Cauchon, a French cleric loyal to the English. The politically motivated trial accused her of 70 charges, including heresy, witchcraft, and cross-dressing, for wearing men's clothes in battle and prison. Joan's brilliant responses often outwitted her interrogators. When asked if she was in God's grace, a theological trap, she replied,